Good morning, everyone. This is Mark Burgess with the Department of Commerce, Office of Employment and Training. Welcome back to our continuing series of WIOA Wednesday webinars. We did not have one last week, but we're back on track again. As we've always stated, we'd like to have these every week, but if we don't feel there's a topic that would be able to be presented, we will definitely hold off on those. A little bit of the housekeeping issues, but before I go into those, if you would please complete each of the two polls that are on your screen. It'll give our presenters an idea of the organization or entity that you are working for and with, as well as give them an idea of your understanding of the RFA at this point in time. And hopefully, if we were to ask the same questions at the end, we would have a little bit better idea of your responses to that second poll. Housekeeping issues, as usual, we would like you to mute your phones utilizing the mute button on your phone or the # keys, which will automatically mute as well so that we can reduce the background noise. Utilize the chat pod. We're going to wait till the end of the presentation, which hopefully won't take much more than about 30 to 40 minutes of presentation time, and we'll take questions over the telephone at that time, but you can always present a question or a comment in the chat pod to your left. So please do that, and we will address that if necessary during the presentation or at the end when we start taking all of the questions. The document that we'll be using today is a PowerPoint. It is available in the Files pod on the bottom lower left of your screen. For those of you that were sent this yesterday, the one you're going to see today has two minor changes. They're not in language. They're just in appearance, so don't feel alarmed that you might have an improper version. As you'll see when we pull it across, we added a logo as well as just made one of the slides near the end a little bit more readable in the viewing of it. So don't think you have to download this version and print it off. If you've already printed off the other one, the information will stay and is the same. So with that, I'm going to give you another few seconds to complete the polls. We've got quite a few people attending today. As we continue this series, we're getting more and more of our agency partners, as well as even in this case, we'll have some business members maybe that are participating. So welcome to all the new participants to the webinar. And if you are interested in seeing what we're presenting in the future, you can always go to the Illinois WorkNet website, where we are posting what those are, and we can also have you added to our distribution list so that you'd be notified. But you can use the same link that you used to access today's webinar session. You can come in here anytime on a Wednesday morning to see what that topic is. I'll usually post those 1 or 2 days beforehand when we're confirmed as to what they are. Today's presenters, I'll begin the discussion, but the main presenters today will be Patrick Campbell and Deb Waldrop with the Department of Commerce, as well as John Barr. We'll talk about a little bit of the fiscal issues with this particular request for application. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and give me a second to remove the polls and bring up the document we're going to be utilizing today. Those of you, again, that have been participating in our webinar session know we've got kind of one main theme that we are making sure everyone is understanding. Under WIOA, there's a definite focus on partnerships and collaborations, and so we want to make sure that as we bring everyone together in these sessions, as well as any other discussions that might occur outside of a webinar, are considering that we are working as a group here in Illinois. There are meetings going on regionally, statewide, and we want to make sure that everyone that has a part in a position in those are taking active participation seriously and understanding where they fit into that puzzle. Now, this particular webinar is for a request for application on a statewide program. It's to help companies hire and retain workers in high-demand occupations that are going to provide a good wage, and its focus is the talent pipeline. This particular RFA, or request for application, is due no later than March 1st, and so we want to make sure you're aware of that deadline. The Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, or WIOA, has a main focus of meeting the needs of businesses, but also providing job seekers with the skills, training, and resources needed to attain long-term employment, providing a good wage. Here in Illinois, we're addressing that by one of the main ways is going through a talent pipeline that we've developed. We've got information available on the Illinois WorkNet website, and if you would please, Chelsea, post that just so people can get that link early on here, and then we'll provide that link later on in the actual presentation. We're building relationships with core partners, other agencies. We're partnering with communities and businesses, such as also utilizing the Community Services Block Grant Program. We're working with employer associations and educational groups. This is all bringing together the workforce, economic development, and education systems in a collaborative effort to provide qualified job seekers to meet the business needs. As I mentioned earlier, we're working on a regional basis. Many of you are familiar with the regional planning process that is occurring right now. That regional partnerships in Illinois are working to create and retain these jobs, reducing the skills gap to help businesses remain competitive and expand on career opportunities for youth and adults, especially those that may have a barrier to employment, such as individuals that are low income, veterans, and those with disabilities. Through these regional meetings, and we've been discussing, as I mentioned, those partnerships and collaborations. Our next set of meetings that are addressing that is our regional summit that is occurring February 23rd and 24th here in Springfield. Again, if you're a player in this endeavor, make sure you've got that on your calendar and participate. You should have got notice of that already and started making those arrangements. But we'll be getting you more information regarding that regional summit to occur here. All the organizations you see here on the screen, we're familiar with it. You know, the top four, the core partners, as outlined under the WIOA Act, and as well as all the other state agency partners, which there are a total of 16 here in Illinois. We want to just make sure that everyone's working together and continue that message, as I mentioned, that we've been trying to discuss through all these webinars and that WIOA has as a focus. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Patrick Campbell, who can start the discussion in more detail on this particular project.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to start off by talking about kind of globally what the concept is of this. We've done multiple RFAs now towards the talent pipeline, and we think that it's critical for folks to really understand what it is we're looking for out of these RFAs. And then Deb Waldrop is going to follow up by going through exactly kind of the details of how we're evaluating those RFAs when they do come into us. So generally there are 5 key concepts to a successful application. And those 5 key concepts are, the first one would be an eligible group to be served, and I'm going to run through all 5 first, and then I'll go through each one with a little more detail. So the eligible group to be served, a portable credential in an industry-recognized training. The third one would be employment at the conclusion of the training or during that process. The fourth one would be developing partnerships, which will be critical and a major component in these pilot projects. And then the fifth one is what makes this a pilot project? So conceptually, how is this a demonstration? How is this thinking outside the box? And how is this pulling in critical components such as registered apprenticeships and other programs that can make the overall process for folks who have lost their job or potentially could lose their job gain employment as quickly as possible. And so let's go back to the eligible group to be served. So under this grant, we're looking at two types of folks to be served. The first group is an incumbent worker, and as you all know, those are folks who are currently at a company, but their skills may be outdated, and we have listed some of the risk factors that you can look at. Those would be declining sales, supply chain issues, industry market trends, changes in management, philosophy or ownership, worker lacks necessary skills, strong possibility of new job if worker attains new skills. So those are all the things that we're looking at to help the incumbent worker. Obviously, that helps the company maintain itself, become competitive, and while also ensuring that those incumbent workers are not going to be laid off, and that's really what we're looking at from the incumbent worker side. The other folks that would be eligible under this RFA are dislocated workers. So those are the two types, the incumbent and the dislocated worker. And what's a dislocated worker? A dislocated worker, by definition, is an individual who's lost their job through no fault of their own due to a business closure or a layoff. So those folks we are looking as new to develop as new employees at a company who is a competitive company and who is looking to expand their workforce or their talent pipeline. The second concept is training towards employment. Now, the training that we're looking for can be a wide variety of training. We're looking for work-based learning or on-the-job training, classroom training, customized training. Some people confuse customized training and they put that in a category when actually it is off-the-shelf training. It's just there's an agreement with the community college or university to work with companies to best utilize that off-the-shelf training for the work group that is seeking employment with an employer. And then there's also a combination of these types of training. So, we can talk about class-size training along with work-based learning or on-the-job training, either prior to or even during the on-the-job training process. We would also look to, as I said before, for folks to dovetail this in with the registered apprenticeship. This really gives the registered apprenticeship program some real legs and some a benefit to an employer to bring them on while providing a portable credential to the dislocated worker or incumbent worker. I've kind of touched on a work-based learning. That can be generally up to 6 months, and we will fund the on-the-job training or work-based learning during that period of time, depending on the size of the company, anywhere from 50 to 75% of the wages. The registered apprenticeship, want to make sure we note that in order for an apprenticeship to be recognized, a lot of folks call things apprenticeships, but in order for it to be recognized, it needs to be recognized by the Department of Labor and registered through them. So that's kind of a critical component. We have several grantees out there right now who are working on apprenticeship pilots, so we know this can be done. And we are really encouraging and looking for more of these types of demonstration or pilot projects to be developed. The class-size training, that can be incorporated, as I said, with the work-based learning. That is generally class-size training is kind of off-the-shelf training through a community college or a university. So things can be worked out with an employer to ensure that it maximizes that dislocated worker's potential to secure employment at that employer. But in addition to that, on the next slide, we also have customized training, which requires more of a commitment from the employer, and those details are listed on the customized training slide. Incumbent worker training has really taken off. We've had multiple projects through the last several RFAs that incorporated incumbent worker, and really a lot of companies are benefiting, and the incumbent workers at those companies are able to maintain or be promoted because of the skills that they have attained. We have a slide in here for the incumbent worker employer match sliding scale, kind of lays it out. The details of this are all in the actual RFA as well. And then we did a summary page, a recap on the types of training, kind of tells you what kinds of training are available to which type of the two categories of folks that are eligible for these for this RFA. The employment concept is really critical. We're not interested in funding training for training's sake. It has to have the employment component. And the critical component here is a commitment, actual employers who have committed to working with the grantee to employ the folks who receive training through this RFA. And that is shown in the RFA through a couple of different things. Primarily, we're looking for memorandum of understanding. We also encourage the submission of letters of commitment from the employer on letterhead. It really establishes a partnership and a connection for that employment. So it's really critical to this. We get some RFAs that come in and they say, we've got a great population, we've got a great training, and we're certain that these folks would get employment if we provided this training. But we're looking to go a little beyond that with this RFA. We want to know where that training is, and we want that commitment from the employer. That's a really, really critical part. That leads us nicely into the development of the unique partnerships. We have a lot of different partnerships. We have associations who are the grantees, such as manufacturing associations. We have industrial councils. We have a wide variety of associations and grantees who are out there who have successfully partnered with both training entities and employers to develop a successful RFA. The grantee can be any of those partners. It's up to the grantee to decide who is the best fit for this RFA as the grantee. But the partnership, we would also look for memorandum of understanding. So between the training institution and the employer, we would look for those MOUs to establish a credible partnership within the RFA. One of the components for the partnership is on slide 18, is the reporting requirements. And so it is important that the local workforce area be involved, or a provider for the local workforce area that is familiar with the reporting requirements and the tracking systems that are out there. So the Illinois Workforce Development System, which is the case management system, and then there is an online tracking system for the incumbent worker portion of this. And I don't want to get too much in the weeds on this, but that's why we're asking for the partnership, and as you'll read in the RFA, that's why it's critical that a provider or a local workforce area are involved in this process as a partner to help with the different reporting requirements that are necessary for incumbent worker and dislocated workers. We also have some points on the Memorandum of Understanding that helps in the development of these partnerships and establishes the fact that they are in place when we receive the RFA. And then the final concept is kind of hard for us to elaborate on. We are looking for things outside the box, things that are outside what are normally offered at the local workforce area level. We are looking for some unique pilot projects that really focus on particular groups, incorporate multiple programs, such as the apprenticeship and work-based learning and classroom training, and even different groups to be focused on that are eligible for this as incumbent worker or dislocated worker. We certainly always have the veteran priority, and we also would look for other opportunities to reach out to groups that are outside of the normal just dislocated worker that come in. They have to meet the eligibility for dislocated worker or incumbent worker, but we would be looking for even ex-offenders, a wide variety of groups, disabled, etc., that could be incorporated in this and provide us with a great demonstration project that we can look through and say, we agree, this looks like a very successful opportunity for all of us. And so with that, I think I can move on to Deb Waldrop's section.
Thanks, Patrick. As Patrick's just gone over, the key concepts that we're looking for in these projects, and we've emphasized partnerships and thinking outside the box. We wanted to also give you kind of review the review and selection process. Those questions are part of the RFA document, so you can refer to that document additionally. But the first part of that procedure process is the applicant capacity. So we're looking for applicants who can demonstrate the ability to successfully complete the projects. And I'm not going to read this slide to you painfully, but we need a good summary of experiences from the applicant and the contractors and all the partners that, 18 pages isn't necessary unless you've got 18 different partners. But to give us a good overview of what the related experience is. We're looking for if you've been a previous grantee, what's your previous performance in administering those grants? What were the grants that you had and what were the outcomes? We're also looking for projects that can be completed in 12 to 18 months. So the grant period, the project period needs to align with that 12 to 18 month period. Do you have dedicated staff who can help you with the reporting. Patrick went over that. That's very important. You know, the IWTS system for incumbent workers or the IWDS system for on-the-job training and the dislocated worker piece. Have you identified the qualifications of your staff that can, excuse me, that can, you know, oversee the reporting, the budgeting, the eligibility, the training, the employment, and all those components that are necessary to complete this project efficiently, timely, on budget, and we're looking for good, solid projects. Again, okay, the next page, the documentation of need. Again, a very, very good piece to go over, and we're looking for, does the proposed project, you know, does it address an allowable dislocation event or layoff situation? If it does, then cite the events. And when we say events, we're talking about any kind of a layoff event. We need to know how you're going to recruit dislocated workers, and if you're going to recruit dislocated workers, how are you going to do that? That would need to be a partnership with a certified a local workforce area or a partner that is certified to determine eligibility. That can't be done with someone who's not, you know, part of that. For incumbent workers, you know, we need to see how you're going to do the layoff aversion piece. And how does the outcome that you're projecting align with what the RFA is looking for? You know, what's going to be your training population? What's going to be, how are you connected with that target population? So we need those kinds of connections. Next slide, project quality and coordination. What is the industry sector? What kind of occupations and career pathways is the project going to address? What types of training and what's the method of training delivery that's going to be implemented? You know, with apprenticeship projects, as Patrick said, that has to demonstrate a connection to a local workforce area. What is the number of participants? What are the companies that are going to be served? We are looking for projects, as he said, that, you know, address veterans or individuals with disabilities, and what kind of impact can we have that we don't normally have with our dislocated worker money, our dislocated worker projects. We want you to be specific. We want you to, if you know, work from if it's for dislocated workers, off of a provider list. We need it to be clear and in accordance with the RFA. And I can't emphasize enough on the coordination with key partners and the strengths of the partnerships agreements. That MOU is very necessary. We have to show that there is a connection, and how are you partnering? And just saying that you're going to partner with somebody isn't the same as having an MOU. So we're looking for good, solid connections. And how does this go above and beyond the norm? What is the overall feasibility and quality of the project plan? Those are just some of the highlights of what we're looking for. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to John to talk about the cost effectiveness and the return on investment.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Deb. The last review category is around the cost effectiveness and the return on investment, this is basically to summarize the bottom line of your project. So how is this gonna impact your companies and job seekers and workforce in your region, right? So I mean, talking about you know, this grant will help you retain so many employees and put them on, you know, an upward career path, or you will impact, you know, this number of unemployed individuals. So, I mean, that's really the bottom line. Obviously, we look at a cost per individual that is trained, and you know, we really look at this evaluation factor to really look at that bottom line impact. I just point your attention to the last page of the application or the request for application document on page 11 and 12 that goes through all of these review and selection procedures in extensive detail, and that's exactly what the proposals are reviewed on. And if you have any questions about those, staff is absolutely able to, address those. Next slide.
Sorry. There we go.
Deb, I just wanted to add in one more thing after John, and that is that we're going through this relatively fast. We've done several of these before, and in detail. It is videotaped. It is on the website. So if you really want to get into the weeds on this, there is a nearly 60-page PowerPoint document where we went through in painful detail the RFA. What we're trying to do here is give you an overview or general concepts and what we're looking for out of this application. So as not to scare people away, we want to encourage people to come in with projects and to sit down with both Deb Waldrop and myself. At the end of this PowerPoint, our names, our numbers are there. We are making ourselves available to sit down with you and have a conversation about how this might best work for you and your organization, and who might be the best partner fits. We can certainly make recommendations if you have, if you have a partner but you need a third partner, who should you reach out to? We can talk to you about those concepts and those ideas and help you further develop those for yourself. So we really want to encourage all folks that might think that they're interested in it. Let's talk about this and let's see how this can best work for your group. I'm sorry, Deb, go ahead.
That's okay. Thanks, Patrick. But one additional thing, and as Patrick said, we've hit the highlights here. The RFA is gives you additional detail, but we would like to encourage you to go ahead. If you have applications that you want to submit, don't wait till that March 1st deadline. You can go ahead and get those in anytime. The March 1st is it's a deadline that we set because of funding, but any applications that come in after that will be reviewed on a discretionary basis depending on our funding and the amount, whatever we have left to do business with. But the summary page is just that. It's just kind of a quick review of what we need and what we expect, what we are looking for. We're excited for it. You can, again, as John said, you can refer to pages 10 and 11 of the request for application for additional resources. We're going to post questions and answers on Illinois WorkNet. There's an FAQ, and we want you to check that frequently, because as questions come in, we will post them there so that everyone has the benefit of those answers. So anyway, that's really all I have. The next slide is just an overview of what the page looks like. And Mark, Lorraine, do you have anything to add?
Lorraine said not. She's looking forward to getting the requests. I just want to add to kind of finalize where I started the presentation in trying to bring together all the individuals that are in attendance today participating, especially those from other agency partners, and trying to help you understand, and Patrick touched on this a little bit, but we're going to be working with several populations potentially in these grants. So if it's a project that involves veterans, maybe that agency can be involved to provide some additional services that might not be available through this grant. Individuals with disabilities can surely lean on the Division of Rehabilitation Services at DHS. So that's what the thinking we want everyone to have is to, if you're from a partner, potential partner, if you're not even part of the specific grant but might be available to provide assistance with that grant, just continue to think how you fit into this equation, and it's a global, concept that we're utilizing under WIOA that, we're all trying to work together and provide the best services to our customers, which includes not only the workers but the businesses. And so we want to make sure that anyone that are participating in these webinars is keeping that in mind. And so, if someone wants to make a comment from an agency partner perspective as to how they might be able to fit in this, or maybe since this is the fourth or fifth round of these RFAs, if they've been involved in the past and want to give, just a quick, we don't want to take a lot of time here, we can add it to the website some examples. But if someone just wants to give an example of how they've been involved in one of these RFAs from a agency perspective or a community-based organization perspective, we'll welcome those now, and we'll also open it up for questions for anyone that has not already posed them in the chat pod. All right, one of the questions coming in is about basically the definition of a dislocated worker, and there's a two-part answer to that with this RFA. We have a definition in WIOA that outlines what a dislocated worker is. It includes displaced homemakers. So, you utilize that definition initially, but the second part of that is when you're determining who gets entered into the debts system, it has to be associated with an event. So, you have your population of dislocated individuals who are no longer working, but an event only occurs when there's a dislocation of at least one or more individuals, whether it be by layoff, plant closure, or something of that nature, and it has to be from something that is not the individual's fault. So if the individual is fired from a company, even though they're incurring a layoff situation or closing, or they quit willingly, or they retired, they would not be considered a dislocated individual for purposes of counting in that event. Again, so we want to clarify that. When we get policy out on this more clearly, we'll outline that there. But we want to make sure everyone understands what an event means. And an event is a plant closure or layoff that involves at least one or more people. The policy is that if there's at least 1 to 49 individuals, the local area would document that in the debt system. If it's 50 or more, the state would document that in the system. All of those should be identified, and we are still notified of those. So it just is, who's going to enter it into the system. And those of you that aren't familiar with the debt system, you'll just work with your, partners to determine who actually does that. At our level for Title 1B workforce activities, we work with the local workforce investment areas or innovation areas. So you would probably want to reach out to them to help you with that. Yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
Let me elaborate a little bit on that. So, so for those of you that are not familiar with dislocated workers, certainly Deb or myself can talk to you about that in greater detail, because we don't want to confuse you with the bureaucratic language. But ultimately, a dislocated worker is an individual who's lost their job through no fault of their own. Mark is correct that they need to be laid off. It can be 1 to thousands of people that are laid off from a single company, but it can also be, we now set up dislocation events by industry. So for whatever reason within a particular area, if a large number of folks were laid off, maybe 2 at this company, 5 at this company, 7 at this company, from a particular industry or a type of manufacturing industry, we can set up an event ID for that particular group. So there's a wide variety of ways that we can work with this and try to alleviate the layoff issue that is occurring in that particular area. So think of it a little more globally than just one company at a time. It can certainly be one one company where, 500 people were laid off from that company. It can be one company where, 50 people or 25 people, but it can also be 5 companies where a total of 50 people were laid off. So try to think of it that way, and that's who we're looking for. How can we focus on those groups?
Thank you. And also, as Mark has posted on the chat pod there, we have a final poll that we'd like to be sure that you participate in before you finish and drop off. And, if there are any further questions, please let us know now.
As we wait those, I'll go ahead and next week's webinar, we will be holding one same time, 10 o'clock, the same link. It will be focused on the regional planning not the regional planning process, the unified state plan. We'll have several individuals from the Office of Employment and Training presenting, so mark that on your calendars. We will also have a webinar on the 17th of February. We are still trying to finalize the topic and presenters for that. And then to go 3 weeks out, we will not be having a webinar on February 24th, as that is when the Regional Planning Summit will be occurring. And so everyone that, or a lot of the individuals that would generally participate in these webinars will be tied up in those meetings. So just mark that we will not have a webinar on the 24th of February, and then again we'll provide you additional information going beyond that date. Otherwise, I don't see any other questions coming in. We appreciate the presentation today. Please utilize the website to gain additional information on the RFA. There are 8 or 9 other documents out there that can provide you information. The frequently asked question from the previous versions of this grant or application process are out there. Many of those questions will be the same as we anticipate through this round, so you'll be able to get some of the answers there to your questions. Otherwise, thank you very much for your participation. We look forward to getting those requests for application submitted. Thank you.